Snoop told the story a few times, but he had it wrong a little bit. He had said that Pac stepped to me.
Snoop didn't come with Pac to this park. Snoop got there in his vehicle, his security, however he did. So I think all the niggas that we had with us, they was outside the venue.
And Pac had seen Nas in the park, and him and Nas had words, but Nas didn't want none. But Nas had 100 niggas with guns.
Right.
Snoop never came to ain't nothing with him, but it was a whole lot of love. Come on, man. Shit just don't add up.
Y'all, this story just took a wild turn, and it's shaking the entire hip-hop world to its core. Nas has finally broken his silence and is calling out none other than Snoop Dogg for allegedly lying about his involvement in Tupac Shakur's death. Nas is putting Snoop on blast and questioning everything he's ever said about the tragic night Pac lost his life. Could Snoop have played a bigger role than he's let on? Let's break it all down, because this one is about to get messy. Back in the day, Snoop Dogg and Tupac were seen as the ultimate duo in the hip-hop game. Both signed to Death Row Records during its golden era, they represented the pinnacle of West Coast rap dominance. But behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as they seemed. Some insiders claim that Snoop might have harbored jealousy toward Tupac. Why? Well, Pac came in and skyrocketed to superstardom, stealing the spotlight and becoming an even bigger icon than Snoop.
To release my mind, that's something I really needed, you know what I'm saying? I had
You did
fun in the
release your
water.
mind.
I went to the water, I was in the sky, me and Tupac was like 30 feet in the air.
Pac, he was upset. He was definitely upset, because Snoop was, he loved Snoop, man. He loved him. And let's be clear, you know, they would have got past that.
And to make things worse, let's not forget Snoop's legal troubles back in the early 90s. He was facing a first-degree murder charge in connection with a drive-by shooting. For Snoop, this was a major turning point, one that pushed him to step away from the gangsta rap lifestyle. He publicly expressed remorse for the man who had passed, showing a side of vulnerability that was rare in the rap scene at the time. Snoop turned himself in on September 2nd, 1993, just after presenting the award for Best R&B Video at the MTV Music Awards. The media was eating up the story, framing it as yet another example of how gangsta rap glorified violence. But Death Row Records wasn't about to let their rising star fall. They bailed Snoop out on a $1 million bond and hired the legendary Johnny Cochran to represent him. For 2 years, Snoop fought his case. And during that time, the public conversation shifted to whether gangsta rap was fueling violence or merely reflecting it.
They come back 2 months later, oh yeah, he had a gun, but he wasn't going for it. Then they come back 4 months, yeah, he was going for a gun, but he was only going for it after McKinley Lee went for it. So that lets you know they're obstruction to the law.
Meanwhile, the East Coast versus West Coast beef was heating up. Snoop and Tupac, alongside other West Coast heavyweights, were initially seen mingling with rising East Coast stars like Biggie Smalls and Bad Boy Records' Sean Diddy Combs. They even shared stages together, showing a rare moment of unity in an otherwise divided rap game. But everything changed on November 30th, 1994, when Tupac was shot 5 times and robbed in the lobby of Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan. The incident turned everything upside down. Tupac believed that Biggie and Diddy had set him up, publicly ending their friendship and starting one of the most infamous rivalries in hip-hop history. The situation only escalated when Biggie released Who Shot Ya as a B-side track to Big Papa. Although Biggie and Diddy claimed the track was recorded before Tupac's shooting, Pac and his camp saw it as a taunt. While Tupac was locked up, stewing over the betrayal, the seeds of the East Coast versus West Coast feud were firmly planted. The tension between Tupac and Biggie became the defining narrative of the mid-90s rap scene. And with Snoop caught in the middle, juggling his own controversies and loyalties, the stage was set for the chaos that would follow. Tensions at Death Row only grew worse. Snoop's legal troubles and desire to distance himself from the gangsta rap lifestyle clashed with Tupac's relentless energy and growing beef with East Coast artists. As Tupac's paranoia increased, fueled by his belief that Biggie and Diddy had betrayed him, some say Snoop started to drift away.
Pac right here, a couple other right here. I'm like, what's up, Pac? And they do me like this.
While Tupac doubled down on his East Coast diss tracks, Snoop seemed reluctant to pick a side. In interviews, Snoop spoke about wanting peace between the coasts, which allegedly didn't sit well with Pac. Tupac, who was all in on Death Row's rivalry with Bad Boy Records, reportedly felt that Snoop wasn't loyal enough. This growing divide would eventually lead to what some insiders call the beginning of the end of their friendship. And here's where things get even darker. Suge Knight, the head of Death Row, has hinted in past interviews that Snoop might have known more about Tupac's tragic death than he's letting on. Suge claims there was jealousy brewing between Snoop and Pac, jealousy over fame, power, and the attention Tupac was receiving. Fast forward to today, and Snoop Dogg's recollection of events leading up to Tupac's death has raised more eyebrows than ever. In interviews, Snoop talked about the infamous plane ride from New York to Los Angeles, just days before Tupac was fatally shot. Their relationship, once brotherly, was crumbling under the weight of loyalty conflicts, egos, and public statements. It all started at the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards, where Tupac had a tense standoff with Nas. According to Snoop, Pac confronted Nas with hostility, accusing him of disloyalty. But Nas, instead of escalating the situation, offered Tupac a hug and reassured him that he would never diss him. For Tupac, the East Coast was enemy territory, and anyone associating with it was a potential threat. But the real drama kicked off the next day when Snoop appeared on Angie Martinez's Hot 97 radio show. Snoop's comments about loving both Biggie and Pac and wanting to work with East Coast rappers didn't sit well with Tupac. Pac felt betrayed, interpreting Snoop's words as a clear sign that he wasn't fully on his side. According to Snoop, this caused a rift between them, leading to what would be their final encounter.
I said I want to do a song with them niggas. That's how I ended. I said I ain't got no issues with Puffy and Biggie in New York on Hot 97.
Why the fuck did you say that?
Because that's how I felt. They tried to get me to not like Puffy and Biggie while we was in the middle of the Death Row Bad Boy feud. And I made a choice that I had no issues with them.
The flight back to LA was anything but friendly. Snoop recalled being iced out by Tupac and Suge Knight's entourage. Nobody spoke to him, and he sat alone, aware of the mounting tension. To make matters worse, Suge reportedly didn't allow Snoop's personal security on board, leaving him vulnerable. Feeling unsafe, Snoop hid a knife and fork under his blanket, ready to defend himself if things escalated.
This time I go to the airport, my security walking with me. Suge like, hold up, they can't roll. They gotta catch a regular flight.
This level of paranoia paints a grim picture of the state of their relationship. Why would Snoop feel the need to arm himself unless he genuinely believed Tupac or someone in his circle might harm him? Snoop admitted he tried to smooth things over with Pac, but the damage had already been done. That flight was the last time they saw each other before Tupac was shot in Las Vegas just days later. Was Snoop's love for Biggie a betrayal? Adding fuel to the fire, Snoop's public statements about loving both Biggie and Tupac have now been reframed as potential betrayal. At a time when Pac was waging an all-out war against the East Coast, Snoop's neutral stance came across as disloyal. It wasn't just about words, it was about choosing sides, and Pac made it clear which side he expected Snoop to stand on.
Biggie Smalls, he's an artist that I listen to his music, I love his work. There's no beef, it's nothing personal. I don't hate him and I don't disrespect him and I love what he do, you know what I'm saying? And it's just me, I'm just a smooth, peaceful individual. I don't have beef with nobody right now, baby.
After the interview, we go back to the hotel. So my Uncle Rio come back up to my room. He like, man, Tupac and them is on some bullshit, man. They down there talking shit, blah, blah, blah.
This dynamic ties back to Suge Knight's claims that Snoop might have known more about Tupac's death than he's admitted. Suge has repeatedly suggested that jealousy and conflicting loyalties played a role. With Tupac being the rising star of Death Row, Snoop's comments about Biggie and the East Coast may have added fuel to an already volatile situation. Perhaps the most chilling detail is Snoop's confession about hiding a knife on the plane. It's a small act, but it speaks volumes about the tension between him and Tupac. Snoop was ready to defend himself, which raises the question, did he genuinely feel threatened by Tupac? Or was there something deeper at play? If Snoop was prepared to take such drastic measures, could this fear have spiraled into something more sinister?
So I walk to the back of the plane, give me a blanket, grab me a knife and a fork, put the blanket over my nose right here, my little black glasses on, and ride like this the whole flight, hoping one of them come with me so I could stab at everybody on this mother.
Some have even speculated that the knife could symbolize motive, an unspoken readiness to protect his own interests at any cost. Whether it was fear or calculated self-preservation, This detail casts a shadow over Snoop's role in the events leading up to Tupac's death. Did Snoop really stir the pot between Nas and Tupac? Nas's recent comments have cast a whole new light on Snoop Dogg's account of events during the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards. According to Snoop, he witnessed a heated encounter between Tupac and Nas that nearly escalated into violence. But Nas has come forward to say that Snoop's story doesn't match the reality of what went down. In fact, multiple insiders, including those who were present that night, claim that Snoop wasn't even in town during the awards. Nas has made it clear that there was no altercation with Tupac, and the interaction was far more peaceful than Snoop described. Tupac might have had his issues with East Coast rappers, but Nas reportedly approached him with respect and admiration. If anything, their encounter ended on a positive note, with Tupac walking away without any bad blood. So why would Snoop exaggerate or fabricate such a story? Some speculate that Snoop was trying to create unnecessary tension between Tupac and Nas to deflect from his own issues. Others believe it was a play to boost his own image as a peacemaker, someone who stood in the middle of the East Coast versus West Coast drama. Whatever the case, Snoop's retelling doesn't add up, and it raises serious questions about his intentions during a time when tensions were already dangerously high. Adding to the growing skepticism around Snoop Dogg, veteran bodyguard Gene Deal has raised some serious doubts about Snoop's credibility. Gene, who worked closely with major industry players like Diddy, has openly criticized Snoop for presenting himself as a neutral and loving figure in the East Coast versus West Coast feud, calling it a misleading image. Gene has pointed out how Snoop's actions often contradicted his words, especially when it came to Tupac. He highlighted how Snoop claimed loyalty and love for Pac, yet his behavior during crucial moments said otherwise. For example, Snoop reportedly armed himself with a knife during a tense flight with Tupac, isolating himself and appearing more fearful than loyal. To Gene, that move raises questions about the supposed love Snoop claimed to have for Pac. Things get even more complicated when looking at Snoop's absence during Tupac's final days. Gene questioned why Snoop avoided Pac entirely in the weeks leading up to his death. For someone who publicly expressed so much admiration, his failure to visit Tupac in California or show support during that critical time seemed out of character.
It wasn't all that love until Pac was dead. Wasn't Big out at California 3-4 weeks and Snoop never saw him? Snoop never came to smoke nothing with him? Snoop never came to eat nothing with him? But it was a whole lot of love?
Gene didn't stop there. He also criticized Snoop's relationship with Biggie, suggesting that it felt more like a media strategy than genuine love. Despite Snoop's claims of being a peacemaker, his actions, both with Pac and Biggie, painted a very different picture. For someone who positioned himself as a bridge between the two feuding coasts, Gene believes Snoop's behavior ultimately caused more harm than good. Adding even more intrigue is Suge Knight's claim that Snoop, Dr. Dre, and others were part of a secret society in the music industry. Suge has hinted that this group was tied together by dark secrets and X-rated tapes, creating a web of silence and complicity. Suge alleges that Snoop and others may have been complicit in some of the toxic behaviors that ultimately led to Tupac's demise. And let's not overlook Snoop's willingness to cozy up to Biggie shortly after Tupac's death. While Snoop claims it was out of love and respect, many have viewed it as a betrayal of Pac's legacy. Could this be why Suge and others continue to cast doubt on Snoop's loyalty? At the time of Tupac's death, Snoop Dogg admitted that their relationship wasn't in the best place. Despite their rocky friendship, Snoop claimed he went to visit Tupac in the hospital after the shooting, wanting to see his longtime friend. However, the visit took an unexpected turn. According to Snoop, seeing Tupac in that state overwhelmed him, and he ended up fainting right there in the hospital. It was Tupac's mother, Tupac Shakur, who had to console Snoop, telling him to be strong and stay composed. Now, looking back at this moment, things start to feel a little questionable. Snoop, who positioned himself as a loyal friend, was later seen cozying up to none other than Diddy, a man many suspect had a hand in the deaths of both Biggie and Tupac. Given Diddy's ongoing controversies and the allegations tying him to shady dealings in the industry, Snoop's public allegiance to him raises some eyebrows. Was Snoop's hospital visit genuine? Or could it have been an act to maintain appearances? When you connect the dots, it's starting to look a bit suspicious. From his public proclamations of love for Tupac to his ties with Diddy, who's been accused of orchestrating much of the chaos during that era, Snoop's behavior doesn't fully align with his words. The timeline of events leading up to Tupac's Red Rum doesn't exactly paint Snoop in the best light. His conflicting loyalties between the East Coast and West Coast camps, His isolation from Tupac and his exaggerated stories about Nas have all come under scrutiny. Nas's comments add another layer of complexity to the story. If Snoop was stirring the pot between Tupac and Nas, could this have been part of a larger betrayal? Snoop has often claimed he had love for both Tupac and Biggie, but his actions seem to contradict this narrative. OGs like Gene Deal and others have made it clear that Snoop's so-called love didn't translate into loyalty when it counted most. With these revelations, Snoop's role in Tupac's final days is being re-examined, and not in a favorable light. So what's the real story here? Was Snoop Dogg truly a loyal friend to Tupac, or did his actions behind the scenes tell a different story? Could his ties with Diddy and his own questionable behavior during Tupac's final days hint at something much darker? And most importantly, with all these allegations and conflicting narratives, is the truth about Tupac's death finally coming to light, or will it remain buried forever? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button for more hip-hop revelations. And while you're at it, make sure to check out the next video on the end screen. We're diving even deeper into the secrets and scandals of the rap game.